Radio campers, how you doing? This is Sharon Combs with Knowledge or Nonsense with UCDI Leadership. Today I'm going to be joined by Wendy Brazel, Lorraine Perkins, and Lisa Hyde. And we're going to talk about stress management. Like, is it a thing? We'll go over some of the challenges and some of the, not to be super emotional, but maybe some of the feelings and emotions that we've experienced over this past 6 months. We'll talk about things and tools with how to manage stress, how to recognize symptoms of being stressed out, and some things you can do for self-care. We'll also touch on boundaries and maybe help people find a me space for those of you who are teaching your children and going to work and still doing it all within one, however many square foot area that you're in. So thanks so much for joining me on this Saturday. How is everyone doing?
Good.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, man.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you all are on, and I'm so glad that you're willing to share of your expertise and your experience as we are going to talk about just some of these questions. So without further ado, let's jump in. Let's jump right in. We always talk about primary colors, like red, blue, green, black, they're primary colors, but rarely do we talk about like the fuchsias and the in-between colors. Similar to that, what are some of the primary emotions that people typically display, and what are some of the 2020 typical emotions if they're different from previous times? Wayne, what are some of the primary emotions that people typically display, and then how does it relate to 2020?
Well, I think one emotion that it's typical but has been laying dormant was anxiety. Okay, I think 2020 has heightened the anxiety in a lot of people because there was so much uncertainty, so many surprises. It's like any surprise, you don't know whether to be in that shock and awe for this phase of stage and how long you're going to be in that shock and awe. So you get to the point when expressing that emotion that it becomes the norm. And in certain jobs, certain workplaces, anxiety shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be a constant theme of being anxious, being always unstable. I think anxiety is an emotional content that's not stable. So I think when I think of 2020, I know we're fastly approaching a new year, but if I had to put one word, I could put more than one word in 2020. But if I had to put a word as it pertains to emotional complexities, it would be anxiety.
Anxiety. Mm-hmm. How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My own anxiety was super high in March and April. I'd also say that grief and loss is a huge part of 2020. That, we think of grief a lot of times when you lose someone that you love, but I think grief happens anytime there's a loss. So we've experienced grief when we have to change plans, when we get vacations canceled, when kids' school gets canceled, when our workplace gets shut down, like my husband and I have to sell our business. So for me, grief is a big part of that, and all those 5 stages of grief that, if the denial, the anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, like all of those emotions are wrapped up into it too.
Yeah. Wendy, can you think of any?
Well, anxiety has been, I've experienced more anxiety in the past 6 months than I have my whole entire life through this pandemic. So I have to agree with Lorraine.
Yeah.
Okay. I have experienced anxiety, but I think mine is more, well, I've experienced anxiety. I have experienced more, this is sad but true. I've seen more anger.
Yeah.
And I think the anger is secondary. I think it's because of fear. I've seen where fear has caused people to respond in anger, so even if you just deal with the anger it's still going to resurface because I think the fear is the driver. So, okay, so those are some of the primary things we've seen. We've seen anxiety. I know we've seen depression, an increase in depression, the loss. It's been a lot of loss. I don't know that as humans we are designed to process as much loss as people are processing this year. And so definitely wanted to ask that question. And I wanted to say, like, those emotions that go ahead, Lorraine, you're about to go ahead. That's it.
Well, just wanted to, because you said that as humans, we're not designed to experience that much loss. I would agree, but I also think if we bring it down to a macro level, I think is as Americans, we're not designed to see this much loss. And the reason I push back on that, you have some countries and some cultures that this level of loss, although represented differently, may not have been COVID. It may be wars. It may be, natural disasters. Other cultures in other countries are pretty adapted, if you will, to this type of emotion. It's become many norms. I was just reading an article on the what they call the silent wars in Syria, right? So we don't get these type of occurrences or wars broadcasted on our television, not on CNN or even BBC, but there are ongoing conflicts that every day. It was an article about a young lady. Well, she has her children can distinguish between the different sounds of different aircrafts because
Wow.
it's their norm. She can tell, and she's only 7 years old. She can tell if this is a helicopter or if it's a bomber plane because it's now their norm. I think also in 2020, I think the emotion called compassion, right? If compassion is an emotion, that's also been decreased. I think in addition to people being angry and anxious, right? There's been a decreased buffer, right? And speaking from a healthcare perspective, many of my nursing friends, I think nurses overall are very compassionate human beings, right? It's part of the line of work, it's part of their makeup. But I think as a society, we've been so polarized, way beyond politics. We've been so polarized to take a side instead of finding that middle ground. And I think that middle ground represents compassion, represents empathy. Because no matter your race, creed, religion, political affiliation, when someone loses their mama, we all can identify that's a loss of a mama or a loss of a friend. So I think I'm hopeful that 2021 we'll get back to our center and be more compassionate towards one another. And although we have different experiences, it still is indeed the human experience. And I really want us to identify with that and let that be our common threshold forward.
I like that. I do think we should. I am hopeful that we can get to that type of agreement. First, though, let's see what are some of the different ways. So we're talking about these emotions. What are some of the different ways we've seen an increase in restrictive and limited thinking in the community? I would ask Lisa and myself to speak on the Well, first we'll talk about the community, and then maybe we'll go to workspace. But what are some of the ways you've seen an increase in restrictive and limited thinking within the community?
I was thinking about this question because you sent them to us earlier, and it feels to me like when there's so many stressors around, we just want to have something we can control. And so limiting your thinking is one way to feel like you can control something. So you block out the opinions that you don't like, or the things that make you scared, or the feelings that you don't want to feel, and you just focus in on one thing that you can control, or you feel
you feel like
you can control whether or not you can, but so I think that's one reason that we see this polarization, this like division, and really the way that people have been more and more just opposing
Yeah.
people and not wanting to hear the other side is because I just want to, we want security. We want to know that we're safe. We want to have some facts that we can just hold on to. And so the tighter we hold on to those points that we want to say, this is true, and I'm not going to even listen to anything that would contradict that. I think it's just a feeling of control.
I agree. Wendy, what do you think?
Well,
Okay.
things can happen.
All right. So Wendy has gone out for just a second.
Okay.
I've seen a lot more. I've seen a lot more hoarding. Not hoarding just as only toilet paper, but hoarding period, like a circling of the wagons, even though it's not quite under attack. So that's a way that I've seen an increase. And I've really seen an increase in I think it's negative thinking, like, well, it won't happen or it's not going to work. Like people are just not even trying anymore, kind of like a defeatist mindset. I've seen an increase in that, and you can hear it in conversations when people are presented with things or presented with opportunities, jobs, or even just conversations. Like Lisa just said, they don't want to do it. It's like, I'm right here right now. And it can be a protective measure, but it still is like restrictive. Wendy's gone away again. Anyone else have any say so on that? Because I want to talk about the workplace too.
Yeah, well, a good segue to your next question or topic. I think, especially during this COVID arena or dilemma, if you will, the lack of physical contact. Right? I never knew how much I always was the type of person who I was never a big hugger, right? But I was more physical than I am now, right? So, and when we really consider it, hugging is a universal action, right? I've been to the zoo many times. I've seen koala bears hug, or you've seen mammals hug. So the universal actions, and when things are taken away from you, right, unnaturally, you tend to miss those things. You tend to miss seeing a friend, and in my story we call giving it a pound, or that is a series of different hand movements that two men embrace each other, or just getting a hug from your auntie, right? So that separation of physical contact it puts a strain on you emotionally that you really can't. Well, I really couldn't understand what was missing. Although I'm surrounded by my children and my wife and my family here, but there was so much of a difference. Even when the neighbors would come outside to ask my kids can come out and play on Saturday morning, and when you look outside, you see little kids with face masks on, right? It's just mind-boggling because that wasn't a reality that I was raised in, right? And then I on a polar opposite of that, I was from an era that we didn't wear bike helmets, right? We you fall off a bike, it was just, hey, you fell off the bike. It wasn't we didn't know what a concussion was, right? So I think this era, this time period is really making everyone re-identify with some of the basic factors of survival. You need human interaction, right? You need outlets to decrease your amount of anxiety. You need compassion. I think these are some foundational needs that we have pushed to the back burner because it wasn't necessarily identified as a daily norm. You never woke up today and say, you know what, Sharon and team, I miss hugging, right?
And you know what? You really can't say that unless it's with a close friend. You can't really just go to work and be like, I miss hugging. People will be like, well, all right.
Right. So, it's those sort of circumstances that are just different. And I think we have to be really smart to identify those differences so we can, we at some point we have to bring some of it back, right?
Yes.
It's on a temporary hiatus, but at some point we have to bring it back to some degree.
I find myself, when I'm introduced to someone, the first thing I want to do is put my hand out and shake them. And we both go to do the handshake, and then we draw back, and then we put our elbow up, and then we dap with the elbow. That's difficult for me, not being able to do that handshake, or, just a simple hello, good morning hug. It is very difficult.
Wow. So let's talk about, like, in the workspace. How do we see this restrictive and limited thinking? And bear in mind, I am a firm believer that the thinking is what drives the behaviors. So I'm asking, like, how do we see that? I know we want to be safe, but how do you see these emotions? Because we talked about the primary emotions. I'm going to ask us to go over some non-primary emotions sometime today. But do we see that as increasing in the workplace too, or no?
I think it is increasing, and I'm gonna speak from not being on the front line routinely, but speaking from a medium like this, right? So conference calls, Zoom meetings have increased 1,000% because of telecommuting, right? And the need to put distance between people. And I think, because we have this screen and camera as a barrier, it's hard for some to express their emotions, and for others is easily misread. So folks who have had difficulties expressing themselves in person, that's now heightened by speaking through this medium, right? And you don't know if someone is happy or sad, or if they're having a good day or bad day, and you can't express every emotion with an emoji, right? We get so tunneled into thinking that everyone is doing well, everyone's doing okay, and when in fact many of our peers are going through some serious challenges, and some may not be willing to share, and many of us don't have the talent to peel back the layers to see what's really going on. So I think it's made it more difficult to be expressive, speaking through these different mediums and channels.
I do think that too. I do think that when you were speaking, Luane, it just made me think about the fact that people are feeling these things and then they come to work. And so they really there's not really an outlet. If you are an artistic person, you may draw, or you may have learned different outlets for yourself to paint, or, music. Music is wonderful, but music doesn't do it for everyone. That's not going to be the release or cathartic for everyone that way. And so, because it's been so long, and that's why I just want us to, the reason we're staying right here is I want other people to recognize the identifiers, to recognize, A, when you're short with someone, B, that you're not crazy because you're anxious. Like, there's not something wrong with you because you are experiencing anxiety. You are not wrong, because a lot of people, as you just said, you may not be able to tell, and they don't have that release. And so that thing grows in the dark and it festers. And so we want to talk about, that's the thing with stress management. Is it really a thing? Is it a catchphrase? Is it a buzz phrase? But first, I want to identify some of the ways so that people can know, whether it's you or someone else, you can know whether you can help yourself or help somebody else, because there has been a lot of loss. So go ahead.
Hey, Sharon, sorry for cutting you off. So in North Carolina, most of our schools, I want to say 90% of our schools are being homeschooled. And my youngest son is in 3rd grade. And on Friday, I sat there and heard his teacher going through so many different ranges of emotion. I said, this is such a strong woman, so strong, able to manage these personalities. So as she's teaching, and she refers to all of her students as friends. All right, friends, please mute your mics. All right, friends, please raise your hand. So she's talking to all of these friends, and everyone is just jumping in at the same time. And she's trying to manage, 25 little kiddos. I was stressed out for her, right? This is amazing how she's keeping she's calm, cool, and collected. She's teaching the most fragile minds. And one of my stress relievers that I wanted to share with her was when I'm in a circumstance like that. One thing I train myself to do is like watching a good movie, right? So you watch this good movie, and the characters in the movie are so engaging. The theme music is so surrounding that when the main character jumps, you jump. Okay, and you can sort of allow the music to take you to a peak or take you off a peak. So what I begin to do, I tell myself I'm only watching this movie. I'm not a part of it. And by me reciting that, it allows me to take a step back to understand. Hey, wait a minute. This is a temporary circumstance. I'm fully engaged right now, but at some point that clock is going to run out, and I'll be prepared for the next phase. So there's one technique I use on a daily basis is to remind myself if I'm not totally engaging, I'm only an observer. I'm only sitting in a seat watching this play out. So that's one technique that helps me a great deal. Another one that when I wake up, before I wake up in the morning, I got this alarm clock in my head. I begin to count down from 10. So after I hear my physical alarm clock, in order for me to reset my day, get my day going, I begin to count down from 10 to 1. And when I get to 1, it's like, all right, it's go time, it's show time. I begin to engage in my daily function. So those are two mental exercises that I do on a daily basis that really helps me to press set and reset at different points of the day.
That's excellent. Ladies, what are some of the things you all do to help navigate transition and where we are?
I do a lot of breathing exercises.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about like what that looks like tell me in case I don't know, so I can tell those of us who don't know what that means.
Breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, very slow. And then it relaxes me. It gives me a moment to think, or to not even think, just to relax before I start my day. That's what I stand. And when I get up, that's the first thing I do. I do a breathing exercise. I'm like, okay, I can make it through the day. No matter what comes at me, I can make it. Just breathe. And don't stress about things that you cannot control.
All right. How about you, Lisa?
I have so much to say on this topic.
Then do it. Bring it. That's what you're here for. I mean.
So yeah, so I think what we're talking about right now are some specific self-care and stress management techniques, which are great. But I kind of want to go back to the beginning of the year when things started shutting down from COVID. We started what I call coping as a nation and as the world. We just started keeping ourselves alive with coping mechanisms. And that's like the big fancy psychology term for keeping yourself alive and your loved ones. So what did? We stayed home. We washed our hands a billion times. We did a Zoom call with everybody we knew. And we hoarded toilet paper because we didn't know what else to do. Like, it's the panic response. It's the fight, flight, or freeze response. Like, those are coping mechanisms. And they kept us alive, but they're not sustainable. So after that, we had to learn stress management, self-care, or self-medicating. And I think this is a big part where you have to separate. Are you going to have a healthy self-care or are you going to self-medicate? And for me, the difference is self-medicating behaviors are things that will numb the pain, stuff the pain, or make you dissociate from feeling the pain in any way, whatever pain that is, discomfort, not being able to hug, not being able to socialize, those painful emotions, we don't want to feel them. So we can numb them with alcohol, with drugs, with food, with more TV than we know what to do with, like all of those things that we know aren't healthy, but what do? So if you don't already have good stress management tools, you'll probably fall back on self-medicating.
Wow.
So
That's good.
what I've been trying to do for myself is figure out what stress management tools I can use now, because a lot of them have been taken away because of social distancing and businesses being shut down. I can't go to my favorite coffee shop and read a book. That's one of my favorite ways to take care of myself, is just go somewhere quiet, have a cup of coffee, read a book. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't go to a gym. I couldn't go to the movies. So all of those tools that I was used to using have been taken away. So what I had to do is figure out the new things. So now we have a new 2020 stress management tool. Take a walk outside, breathing techniques. Wendy, I love that, because I've been doing a lot of breathing techniques. I've been doing yoga at home. Anything that can bring, I think for me, it's bringing unity between my body, mind, and spirit. So anything that can let all three of those parts of me
Line up.
Yeah, line up. That is what brings peace for me.
Okay. I am on the walk. I'm on the walk tip. I am on the walk tip. If I don't think that I really, because usually, you know what I do too? I get in my car and I drive.
Yeah.
I get in my car and drive. That's a 2020 go-to, where I used to go to the movies, as Luane was, he does movies at his house. I used to go to the movies, and that, like, okay, that's a quick escape. I get in my car now and I drive. I put on that music and I drive. I used to talk a lot toward the beginning of the year, but I am a talker. I'm a communicator, but I talk less now. But I get in my car and I drive. And so I just want to rehash what I heard. So, movie, reminding ourselves that I'm not a part of that. That's just, I'm watching it. I'm not a part of it, so it doesn't have to. I don't have to respond like I am in that. Deep breathing, and what you said about coping. We don't have time to go there, but that's so key, because if you don't recognize that you're coping, you won't even recognize when you're quote unquote self-medicating. You won't recognize what's driving that. And again, we see that even in the workplace too. Like, this may sound like, oh, but this happens in the workplace. You know why? Because people come to work, and people are who are experiencing this. And that's why I was like, no, let's talk about stress management. Sounds like a nice buzzword for leadership training, but let's talk about stress management 2020 for real, because there is a lot of loss, LOSS, loss going on. And that loss is causing people to be lost, LOST, because they're like, I don't know what to do with these emotions. And so many people are circling their own wagons, that compassion Luane is speaking of, it's not as plentiful in supply. Previously, maybe one or two of your friends might have a funeral or something over the course of the year. This year, like I said, I have 2 deaths within my circle within the past 30 days. So it's not the same. And one thing about giving out, Luane spoke about nurses. Lisa, you're a chaplain. Wendy, you're all around great person. And I, as I am myself anyway, but so you can't give what you don't have. And because we've been in this extended period of time, you can't give what you don't have. All right, I'm going to go because I am hosting this. Let's ask some more questions.
Well, Sharon, before you get to the next question, I'm interested to know I know I love music, right? And music is one of my go-tos. So I want to know what's on your stress relieving playlist. What are you listening to? What music, what tones, what songs, what's your go-to to help you navigate some of these stressful circumstances?
Okay. I actually listen to all music, but if I'm anxious, if I'm like, and when I get anxious, I recognize where my anxiety comes from. My anxiety would come from me going too far in the future and trying to control too many things that are future occurrences, like 3, 4, 6 months down the line. I need to worry about tomorrow. But and that causes me, and I can tell, because like my body will get tight and my shoulders start coming up here, and I'm like, so what I do then is I put on worship music, but not just any music. You know, some people feel like worship music and they may play gospel, they may play some, some, I don't know. But for me, I need some music that's gonna say, it's okay, because I'm a person of faith. It's okay. I got you. We're gonna get through this. This too shall pass. So I need some worship music that's going to say that, and then I'll come into agreement, like what Lisa was saying earlier. I'll make sure my mind and thoughts align. Now, if I'm anxious and I have a lot of work to do, after I get lined up, I'm putting on something that's going, like, that cadence is gonna have me like whoop whoop, and before I know it, an hour has gone by. And you know what? That may be Post Malone, the clean version, and I may have it on repeat. Because some stuff I can't take. But yeah, I'm gonna put some stuff on there that's making me move and everyone else move. And so, that's what's on my playlist.
All right.
I'm a lady like beach music. I like Bob Marley. Don't worry about a thing. Everything's going to be all right.
That's right. Yeah, that's one of my go-to. That's right.
What's on your playlist, Luane?
Oh, I'm all over the board. I'm from Earth, Wind, and Fire to Tupac Shakur, to Coldplay. Right. So,
I love Coldplay.
Right, I'm all over the board, and depending on the day. So one thing I can guarantee you is every Sunday morning, Bob Marley is the first thing that comes on. Right. Most nights I'll vibe out to some jazz. Some of the classics. And I think the best music I like to write to is jazz. I'm talking about way back to the Duke Ellington, some of those greats. So music is definitely a go-to of mine.
Yeah, 80s too. I like 80s music. Take on me. Yeah,
best music ever invented was in the 80s. I'm just saying. Lisa, how about you? What's on your playlist?
I love jazz, but for me, it's got to be instrumental. So not a whole lot of lyrics in the jazz. So jazz, but jazz standards too. Like I said, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, and those guys. And then worship music. And I'm really particular about my music because I feel like with me, empathy is a huge part of my gift. So as soon as the song is on, I just get right. I can line up to the emotion of it. And so if it's got lyrics that I'm not sure about, I can't do it. It just throws me off. So worship music, like you said, LaSharon, it's got to be something that I can agree with.
That I can agree with for real.
Yeah, or instrumental. So yeah, and I play piano too. So sometimes I'll just sit down at the piano and play, and that is nice too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, look, that piano back there, over there. Where is it? Boop. That's called hashtag green screen. Yes. Okay, so hey, this is good. Let's go over. First, let's do a commercial, and then let's talk about. Let's talk about boundaries within the self-care, self-stress management place. I feel like there's more on stress management that we could talk about, but I definitely want to hit it in workplace because I want people to have tools because everyone's going back to work. Some people are going to work today. Some people are going to go Monday. And there is no reprieve right now for some people. People are dealing with loss. But when we come back, let's talk about how boundaries can influence stress or self-care, and private or negative. When we come back, we'll be right back.
Okay.
Excellent. That was a quick break and we're back. So we're talking about self-care and stress management today. Like, is stress management really a thing formerly on LA Law, or like 2019, 2018, most of the stress management conversations came from leadership training. It was a tool people shared with people who were in management, who were in executive positions. If you were a leadership coach, or if you're working with like work-life balance, it wasn't something that I often saw people give to entry level or like supervisors or supervisor positions, or positions up to supervisor. I'll say that. I didn't really see stress management being something that people talked about a lot within that framework. But now we're at a time where there's so much tension, not just tension emotionally, but so many things are pulled tight right now. Budgets, jobs, relationships, just everything. And so I wanted to ask, as it relates to boundaries, this may be simplistic, but how do boundaries influence stress or self-care? Like, how can that impact it, pro and con?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think whether you're talking about at work or in the home, it's about relationships, and you have to know your partners. Whether it's your work partner, your partners in the home, you have to know before there can be a boundary. It has to be identified. You have to know, what trigger words are gonna impact you. What are some of my trigger words? If I even have a trigger word. So here's an example, right? I manage a healthy amount of professionals, and for some, I know I can bring them anxiety by crossing this boundary. Sending an email after 7 p.m. For some, that directly interrupts their family time, and I can hear the response and the tone of the email when I get a response that late. Even though if I put in the email, please don't read this until 9 a.m. tomorrow. That does no good, right? Because it's like telling someone in a glass elevator going up to the, 101st floor in the Chrysler building, don't look down, right? They're gonna read it. So I think you have to acknowledge that there are some boundaries, and if there aren't that you can acknowledge, it may be helpful to create some. Out of respect, out of empathy, you want to secure your environment, right? And you want to secure the environment of those you work with and care for. I think the helpful part of boundaries is that they're designed to keep things at bay, right? To keep that which is good and untampered with, and that which may bring additional stressors at bay. So identify them first and try your best to manage them. And I think this is part of relationship building.
All right. How about you, Wendy?
Well, let me think. To be honest with you, I'm drawing a blank. To be honest with you.
Okay, that's good. You can come back to it, or
I can speak to the boundaries maybe at home as well, because for me, it's been really important to have time for myself. And like you said, when you're working from home, your kids are home, you've got school and job and everything's happening all in one place. For me to have my kids going to bed, lights out at 8 o'clock, that's been our rule. Like I have a 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so, at the first part of this, we were all just kind of, everybody's staying up or going to bed early. Just, there was no real schedule. But once I learned, like, I've got to have time just for myself at night when the kids are asleep. So lights out at 8 o'clock, that is a boundary that has been really helpful for me. And then also I've had my morning routine more standardized so that I can get up and have some quiet time in the morning just by myself too, which has been difficult and sometimes to make myself get up. But at the same time, it's a really important place. Like Luane was saying, you have to draw those lines where you can protect what is sacred, protect what's good, and keep yourself strong. So that's why I think boundaries are really helpful for keeping yourself strong and helping other people protect their own space too.
I'm a creature of habit. A lot of times people know me know what I'm doing at certain parts of the day. So I'm a creature of habit, and I like to kind of stay within a
In
schedule.
your habits.
Yes, in my habits. I get up every morning, whether it's Monday through Sunday, I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's my body. I wake up and I keep my schedule going all day long. So I'm a creature of habit.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We have put healthy relationships and sound living depend on maintaining smart personal boundaries. Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm a firm believer that like money and time, if you don't decide what to do with your time, someone else will. If you don't decide what to do with your money, someone else will. You'll be like, no, they won't. I guarantee you. Listen, somebody had a flat tire, somebody's gonna need this. Or you wanna, someone's gonna give you a great pitch on how to sew it into something else or support something. But when your schedule is set like that, that actually kind of can protect you from different things. Within the workspace, this question isn't on there, but we're going to go off a little bit. You guys know how to. Within the workspace, what are some ways people can protect their boundaries? Because we have break rooms and we have water coolers, and we have people who may be frustrated and who may not be aware, and they don't have outlets, and they don't know how to paint or draw or just do expressive therapy or rehab therapy. So they come to work and they got it all. And you like, hey, how you doing? And they begin to tell you, I'm just saying, because this is real life. This is where we work, people. So don't fake the funk. You're like, hey, how you doing? That can be all you say. And immediately they just begin to be like, blah, 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 blah. And it's just all this stuff. And you have to use both your hands to try to catch it and hope it don't get on your clothes, because now you got to wash your clothes out because they just slimed you with just everything. And if they haven't had anybody for a week, you're going to get a week's worth of slime. And it's not intentional, but it is still effective. So how do we deal with boundaries in that way? I know that's a curve and I'm throwing it to you. Woo! Break room. I just want to eat my sandwich. I only have, I only have 30 minutes, and you've been going for 12. And I'm sorry that the doorman, peed you off. And I'm sorry that the guy cut you off in traffic. And I'm sorry that or I'm sorry that, maybe we meet at the store and the unemployment check didn't come, or you've been furloughed. I'm sorry. I understand. It's crazy. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel that way, but I'm at work now and I got to protect my boundaries. And, you may feel like I just got to work, but I had to get them kids ready and this and that. And I don't have children, but I'm saying, so how is that? I wanted to talk about it long enough to let everybody have a response. And looking at the faces, I can see that we're ready. We're ready. So how do we navigate those boundaries?
Well, go ahead, Wendy.
So I was just going to say, when I like to listen to people, when people are talking about their problems, I like to listen to what they're saying, because a lot of times I can relate to what they're going through. I can give them advice, or it's just lending an ear.
Well, okay. All right, I can totally relate to that, Wendy. I think it goes back to knowing your position, if you will, in a relationship, whether it's a defined position or not. I think in every conversation, every relationship, there's two people. There's a giver and there's a taker, right? The giver is just always giving out the input, the emotional content, the mental context, always giving it out. The taker is always pulling it in, right? So I think you have to have a good mishmash of givers and takers in your circle. Because as big as a giver that you can be, you can exhaust yourself and give it all out. And you don't want to be a taker so much that you begin to become selfish or self-abhorrent. So I think, and also I teach some of the folks I mentor professionally that you have to know how to use the word NONKNOW, right? You have to be empowered to say, no, I can't take on another project. No, I simply can't work on Sunday. And you also have to be empowered to say, I don't know how to do that. So many of us are so many people are in a space of I have to always impress. You don't have to always impress. You have to be your best, right? And doing your best, you begin to raise your value points. Be your best, do your best, but don't go out of your way to always not be you. I used to be the guy many years ago, trying to come up in the ranks. I would never say no to a project, right? And when you do that, you begin to put more attention, or I'm sorry, you begin to exhaust attention in one area and neglect areas that need your attention, right? So it's about balancement. It's about knowing how to say no. I'm reading Ms. Green Golden's comment. You must be transparent enough to share your truth about boundaries, and when you are able to share and listen to them, it's a give and take. I recommend don't always be the one making deposits, and don't always be the one making withdrawals. Right? You got to balance your books.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I like that.
Yeah, and I'll add into that too, Luane, that 2020. Our resources are depleted already. So maybe you've been used to being a giver, and you've been used to listening, and like when somebody comes to you and wants to vent or whatever, you have the emotional resources to be that place for them. But just be aware that maybe this time in this year, you might not have the resources to do that. So that's just something I want to throw out there. 2020 resources are already depleted, so you might not have the strength or the ability to be as supportive of random people as you might have been before, or even friends who like have been takers. I've noticed that I've had to just not interact as much as I would, just be like, I'm not going to answer that text, I'm not going to answer that message, just like they got to deal with their own stuff, or they have to find a professional whose job it is to listen to them, because that's not my job right now. You know what I mean?
Yes, I have. Yes, I know associates who are now like they're a little more aware, like of how demanding, of how many people in their life have been takers, and they weren't aware of it before. But like you said, the resources are depleted in 2020, the same way we're doing with finances and with time. The social restrictions that are on, so people are more intentional about where they allot their social, whatever their social thing is going to be. They're more intentional with it, with money as well. And now with these resources, with giving of yourself, the same thing. So we're going to get to the hot seat listen, for those of you out there in SPD Nation, just for those of you out there in the workplace period, be aware of the boundaries. You don't want to over respond to somebody and blow up on them because you just can't take it anymore, and you didn't even know, like you're just as surprised as they are when you go off, like it's a simple question. Can't you read the box? Everybody else read the box, and so you find yourself doing that a little more. And when you find yourself doing that, please be aware, like, dude, that's stress. We can just make it plain for you. We're saying great things here, but let's make it plain. Like, if you like, I just can't stand. I find like I don't even like folks like no. If that's your like, that's stress.
Mm-hmm.
That is stress, and so that's something you want to go ahead and begin to manage. And I would say manage and eradicate. Don't manage it like medication, where you just manage it and you're gonna make peace with it and y'all gonna be best friends forever. No, manage and eradicate. Like, okay. Manage and eradicate, because something else is going to come that's going to stress. You're going to have good stress and bad stress. There's going to be something else that can put a demand on you. So just recognize what it is.
Well, Sharon, I have to ask you a quick question, right?
Bring it.
I think I'm stubbornly optimistic by nature, right? But I'm also not naive. And I know through my experiences, I've always been in a workplace that at least one person, not on every team, on many of the teams I work with, there was an agitator, right? There was that one personality, that one energy that I would swear will wake up and say, today, I'm going to cause some friction somewhere, right? And I don't know if this agitator was so intelligent that he or she knew what were the trigger words, what that setback, and just knew every piece, every player, and knew how to just take them off their path of prosperity, just a little bit enough to make that awesome sandwich at lunch taste horrible. So how do you handle those agitators in the workplace? Because this also coincides with boundaries.
You know what? Can I answer that even though I'm the host? Okay, for those of you who don't know, I am a human behavior consultant and I love to study human behavior. Listen, with the agitator, people are consistent. And so when you know that you're dealing with an agitator, you don't have to second guess. I guarantee you they've agitated before you, they'll agitate after you. They're going to be agitating simultaneously. You're not even going to be the only one being agitated. And so when people practice that, you can see it. And when the agitator comes for you, the only thing I can tell you is, even though you're frustrated, you want to say something, you want to clap back and be like, I showed them. I want to let you know that's a lesser victory. Hold your form and minimize your time with the agitator. One way that you can do that is when the agitator is agitating someone else, don't be in the gallery supporting that behavior. You know, if it's funny when he's agitating somebody else or she, then it's only fair that it's funny when they're agitating you. You give it license when you participate. So you have to cut that out, whether they're agitating you at that moment or not. You have to know that when the agitator is bringing you something, you know it's mess, because the agitator was messy before they came to you, because they're consistent. And so I just like to tell people, look at the patterns. Look at patterns of people. Oftentimes we use exceptions to label people or assign meanings or personalities or categorize people. Like, they made me mad once, and so we give them this, I can't stand them. Like, let's reverse this. Look at the patterns of people. An agitator is consistent. If it's always mess and it's around someone, or they're talking and in their language is always someone else, you never hear them take accountability or responsibility or own up to their foolishness, dude, that's an agitator. And you need to minimize your time with that. You want to minimize your time with that, because that's only going to bring chaos and destruction. I don't want to say destruction, it's not the end of the world. It's only going to bring chaos, distraction, and then you're going to have to be involved in damage control. And sometimes you can be guilty by association with that agitator, where if there's an opportunity for a promotion or they're looking for a team to do something, a certain task force, they don't come to you because you're always with the agitator, and no one wants to fool with the agitator. So that's what I would say, LaWayne. The agitator is visible.
Okay. Well, some of us dream in color. Like, we really do dream in color. And some of us, when we're talking, like right now, I always have a theme song in my head, right? So when dealing with an agitator, and this is for the panel, what theme song should we use?
Hit the road, Jack. No. Okay. Hit the road, Jack. All yeah.
Right. How about you, Wendy? When dealing with those tough people, be they roommates, co-workers, whomever, what theme song is going in what's your background music?
There's a song by Shania Twain and another song by Cher, but I cannot think of the name of the song. There's two of those songs. It's talking about the rearview mirror.
Okay. How about you, Lisa?
You need to calm down.
That's it. Just need to calm down.
You need to calm down.
Yeah, but see, and that's it. Like, we can say those things. LaWayne, what'd you say yours was?
It depends on the agitator. Because if it was a certain uncle, I'm hearing some Master P, some Tupac, some and I'm not talking about the clean version in my head. I'm talking about, if you don't get back on that plane and go back to California, but if it's it depends on the person. I switch tunes, depends on the person. Not everyone's gonna get the same response. I think some people are agitators genetically, and others just by default. They don't know they're being agitators. So for some, it's still a learning curve.
I will say this is a tool that I use when with something, when it's a conversation that I no longer want to be a part of, or I feel like it's counterproductive. Whether someone is bringing mess, because there's disinformation, which is the intentional distribution of false information. And then there's misinformation, where you just heard something and you just run and tell it. There's a saying I say in my head all the time. It's like, a lie don't care who tells it. My mom used to say it. A lie don't care who tells it. It just wants to be told. And that helps me pull it from the person and only deal with the lie. But here's a tool that I do when somebody is doing that. I will walk them out, but they don't know it. I will stand up. If I'm in my office, I'll stand up and I'll go get some. I'll be like, I'm gonna go get some water, and I will walk with them to go get water. But I'm dropping them off in the break room. They're not coming back with me. You know what I'm saying? I know that when I get up to walk out, that's a way that is not rude. Except for if you're listening now and I've walked you somewhere, you're like, I love you. But I walk them out. I walk them out because I don't want it. Or I start presenting solutions. Because if when you present an agitator with solutions, they don't want to talk anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You're stopping the agitation. So I'll present with solutions. I'll ask them, what are you going to do about it? What did you try to do? Yeah. And then they're like, man, if they're an agitator for real, like if they're coming to do that.
I love that. I love that. All right. There's at least 2 people watching. Before 2020 is over, I will be walking you out to the so just heads up. And
you can do it to the break room, to the restroom. You don't have to take them with you in the restroom. You can be like
that.
Walk with me.
Good advice. I love that.
Hot seat, because we only have like 2 more minutes. Listen, there's been a lot of meeting this. If you guys are listening to this and you have an aha moment while you're listening, write it down. You can come back and listen to this again. If you have an aha moment, more than likely what you're thinking of is a solution or a resolution to something that's going on in your own life. Please take the time to write it down. If you don't have a pen, pick up your phone, use your voice recorder, and say what your aha moment is so that you can implement it in your life. Because times are tough right now. People are really dealing with loss. And, like I said, in a way that you're not accustomed to dealing with it, people are frustrated. There is uncertainty. Even right now, we don't do political things here, but we have an election coming up. And so people are literally angry on both sides over it. You have to guard yourself from that because that's going to make your body's going to respond to that anger.
Yeah.
Your body responds to anger. And, you'd be like, I got a headache. I don't feel good. I'm sick and all that. What you been put all day long? You've been dealing with this stuff in an unhealthy way. And so the coping mechanisms of Facebook, TV, things that used to be like electric Valium for people to cope and veg out, now those things are actually stirring you up more, and it's causing a physiological, it affects your body. So our hot seat question. No, before we do our hot seat question, I want to give value to parents out there. LaWayne, I would like for you to speak as far as for fathers and uncles. I probably can speak to singles. Wendy, you can speak as a mother. Wendy and Lisa.
A grandma.
Yeah. How do we protect our kids from emotional overload? You know what I'm saying? Your baby's going to get on your nerves right now. They get on your nerves anyway, but now they don't have recess. They don't have,
I think one thing that I have to remember is that as an adult, I at least know what I'm feeling, and our kids don't even have the vocabulary yet to know what they're feeling. So for me to sit with them when they're having a hard time, listen to what they're saying, and then to reflect back to them and say, I'm really sorry you're going through that. It sounds like you're feeling disappointed, or it sounds like you're really angry. It sounds like you're really hurt. Just to put some words to that for them to help them get an emotional vocabulary is one thing we can do for our kids.
I want to interject right there. That's why when we asked the question at the very beginning, what are some of the primary emotions? Because sometimes even as adults, if we're not self-aware, we don't know things like disappointment. Like we know anxiety now because it's a buzzword. We know mad, sad, happy. We only know 2 or 3, but knowing more of that emotional vocabulary will help you and the children navigate. Okay, I just want to say that. What do you think, Wendy, as a grandma? How do we protect children from stress and emotional overload during this time of uncertainty?
Keep them occupied, keep them happy, keep them on a schedule.
That's good.
Stay away from social media. Watch positive things on TV, not so much the news. I know my granddaughter loves to watch TV, and I like for her to stay active and just stay positive. She's always telling me, we do a whole lot of FaceTime because I'm on the road. I don't get a whole lot of one-on-one time with them, but we're on the road. And she's like, Mima, everything's going to be okay. She's telling me that.
That's
yeah, because I raised her like that. Everything's going to be okay. It's a difficult moment, but everything will be okay.
Oh, I love
all
that.
right. LaWayne, how about you as a father, as a male? Like, what are some things you can do?
Well, I find myself always reinforcing and empowering the kids. We live in a pretty diverse community. But unfortunately, the educational system is not that diverse. So they're being taught things at home, historically based evidence topics that they're not being taught in school. So I find myself always bridging the gap, telling them what's real, what can be proven, versus what someone's belief or someone's feeling, right? And how to discern between the two. We started we've always had a book club in the house, and no matter if the book is a Dr. Seuss, everyone gets a chance to pick the book. And for the little my youngest, my third grader, he's the type that he wants you to read the same book over and over, which I think is kind of cool, because every time you reread a book, of course not Dr. Seuss, more than twice, I think you wanna run away. But you find something new. So I think just giving them their own space, granting them a voice, even when they're so far left, but you still have to hear them. Like Lisa said, I can absolutely appreciate that. You have to give them a voice. And I'm not one to hide the tough topics from them, right? I want them to be empowered that if they hear something on the playground, they don't have to identify it as it's coming from them. They have to understand the difference between a victimizer and a victim. What's courage and what's bullying. So all of those tough topics, I think, is important for me to empower them with now. I don't want them to hear it from someone else's experience. I want to give them a real perspective on what's really going on. What are you really going to encounter? One thing that really, I know it ticks I have an 18-year-old, and it ticks him off when I say this to him. We'll be in a conversation, sometime heated, and I might say, you've only been on this planet 18 times around the sun, yet you know everything, right? That's his trigger. It makes him go crazy. Dad, I hate when you say that. What does that even mean? I get it. I'm only 18, so you gotta help build their boundaries, but also know that at certain times, because they're your children, you have to break into those boundaries, and make sure their boundaries are put up and they're well defined for a reason, not just a fortitude to keep you out. So some different mechanisms. I think a good family read goes a long way, and you don't have to be in your home or in the same house to do a good family read.
That's good. I like that. That's good. That's a good practice, that book club. That fosters discussion. That's good. That's good. Be sure to implement out there in social media world. All right. Anyone else on that topic before we go to this hot seat? We're at 1 hour and 4 minutes. The hot seat question, in your opinion, did agencies lose or gain trust among citizens during this pandemic? If so, how did that happen? How did they lose and how did they gain? And how do we all, it may not be, And then the third part is, how do we all begin to recover from the loss or capitalize off of the gain? Whatever you think, whether it's a loss or a gain, how do we all? And I want you to think about, even though most of us are in leadership position and business owners, I want us to think about everybody. Like how can we all move forward? Because we all share this space. And so what I'm going to do before we answer that question, I'm going to play a 30-second commercial. Get your answers ready, because when we come back, and if you don't want to weigh in, you don't have to weigh in. But that's what I want us to say. If you say they lost it, I'm going to ask you, how did they lose it? And what's the solution for it? We'll be right back. All right, let's finish strong. Hot seat question. This is a hot seat question. So, among the citizens, was trust gained or lost?
Lost.
Ooh. All right, Wendy went out there first. So let's do it. How was it lost, Wendy? How do you, in your opinion, let me disclaimer. In your opinion, how was it lost?
Being ill prepared for the pandemic, not knowing what to do, how to do it. We just weren't prepared for it.
All right. So do you have a thought of maybe how we can begin to rebuild and get that back? The trust back?
No, actually I don't. To be honest.
Thank you.
I don't.
No, thank you for your transparency. That is an excellent answer. Thank you for your transparency. Because a lot of people don't know how, and that's why that's what I'm saying. Like, it's the uncertainty that lends to the anxiety. So yeah, thank you for that. How about you, Lisa?
I'd say trust was lost for sure. One reason would be because what I saw from national leadership was a lot of dictatorial comments. Was like either pandemic's going on, either don't do anything about it, it's fine, or we need to like muscle up and crush the opposition, which was like just really like a harsh treatment of the situation. So I feel like neither of those really were effective. And then for me as a chaplain, of course, I'm all about let's listen, let's talk to each other, let's come together, let's find a solution. So for me, those are the ways that we move ahead in this, that we need more communication and people willing to listen to each other from both sides of the aisle.
I think so as well. How about you?
Well, for me, I know there's a science to politics, but I don't think we should politicize science. So I was really disappointed at different points when the CDC switched their recommendations because of political pressure, right?
Yeah.
That's a concern for me. We can't just do that, right? We have to let the science speak for itself, evidence-based reason, and move forward. Keep the politics out of it, right? There's a time and space for politics. So again, I believe there's a science to politics, but we shouldn't politicize science.
Okay. So, do you have an idea of how we can all move forward? Like we can all like to regain trust and do you have a thought on that?
I do. There's a big date coming up real soon, November.
Oh, man.
I want you to scientifically choose a candidate that fits your moral values, that's going to empower the communities in which you live, not just from rare or sheer emotion. Really dig deep and see what's best for you and your family.
Okay, that was great. I'm sorry. I thought you were going somewhere else with that. I was going to be like, uh-oh. But no, yes, I am in 100% agreement. You see, I put my little truth down there. Truth. That is truth. For me, I'm a believer of grace. And so I do think trust was lost. I feel like trust was lost because and not just politically, like from all governing agencies, because people were saying different things from day to day. Definitely the CDC, just some of the things within healthcare, like what? because of the warm market that I'm in. Like, how you just switch that like that? For years, this has been like people got docked. You know, they had to give money back. They were cited for things, and now you're like, go do it. So I was like, what? What's that about? But I had a little more mercy for the leadership, the political leadership, because I'm like, they just as lost as the rest. But sometimes people don't, where you said no or no, having the authority to and the responsibility to be like, I don't know. I think sometimes people feel like they have to have an answer when they don't know, you know? And so I see a lot of leaders just say an answer, but you hoping it's right, just like the person you telling. And I feel like sometimes that's a disservice. So in that way, trust was lost. But again, I have a lot of grace for him because I don't know what I didn't have answers either. So and how we come back from it, I don't know. I think it's what Lisa said. We have to talk and listen to one another, and we have to know what our core values are, for real. Not just be emotionally driven and not be so angry. I think as long as we're angry, we'll keep going in a circle. It'll be to our detriment if anger is if anger is the major emotion in America. I believe it'll be to our detriment. So I'm hopeful, like LaWayne said, that we'll see some compassion as the time goes on. I'm hopeful that you all who are listening will actually engage in some of the stress management things that we talked about, that you'll engage in self-care, whether that's a massage. If you don't have money for a massage, have your significant, have somebody give you a massage. If you have little children, lay down in the living room floor and let them walk on your back. Those are things that are life-giving, will help release tension, and actually will help release tension even in the children as well. Protect the children. So I hope that y'all will use some of the things that we've said today. We have put some links in there, some self-care links, and okay. We have put some self-care links in the comments, so please feel free to go to those links and look at them, use them. I want to thank Lisa Hyde and Wendy Brazel. LaWayne, thank you all for being on here, and we're going to sign off because we are over an hour now. Wait, I do have one more thing to say. Listen, people have experienced a lot of loss. Have some compassion. LaWayne spoke about compassion. Be kind to somebody. Be nice to somebody. See, SPD Nation, be kind to someone. Listen, if you are the agitator, if you can't think of the agitator, but it's always drama, maybe take a look in the mirror. Sometimes it's you, so look at that. And this is a great year for change. Everything's changing that we have no control over. Why not change the things you have control over? If you're the agitator, say, you know what? I'll do something different now. And stop being that agitator.
Walk yourself to the water cooler if you're the agitator. Give yourself a walk.
Give yourself a walk. Do that. So that's all we have on Knowledge and Nonsense today. Please join us Tuesday evening. We're going to be talking about technology and SPD with Mark Duro and Sharon Rojo from HealthMark. LaWayne Perkins will be on. We may have a couple of other guests, but yeah, we'll see you then. Until then, y'all be safe and God bless.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
See you soon.
Thank you, Sharon.